Hello everybody, it's Tanya. Today we're going to talk about what are you sacrificing to God. And let me just tell y'all, God has been with me this whole entire lesson. He's wrote it and it's a very special message. And so we are going to cover Genesis chapter 22, and it's Abraham and Isaac's story. And so we're going to get beginning. We're going to start at the beginning. And so today we will be discussing what you give up. What would you give up to make it to heaven? And do you trust with all your heart to do exactly as God has told you to do in your life? I believe that we are put to the test to show our faith in Him. And then God always shows us what He can achieve with that faith and trust we put in Him. God establishes our relationship, and we in the human flesh have to find it and then build it. So Genesis 22, verse 1 says, "And it came to pass after these things that God did tempt Abraham and said unto him, Abraham, and he said, Behold, here I am." And so God tempted Abraham. And what does that really mean? Being tempted means feeling a strong desire to have or do something, especially an action that might be wrong or a break in your plans. And if it happens when an option looks very attractive or appealing, making you want to choose it even if you know you should not. And God said, "Here I am." And so He's asking you, are you going to walk with Him? And I highly recommend walk with Him. All right. And He said in verse 2, "Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains which I will tell thee of." So God told Abraham, who He loved, He told him to take his only son and offer him as a sacrifice. Don't you know Abraham was like, what is going on? Abraham had to have had faith in God, though. And don't you know that Abraham did some serious talking on that journey to that mountain? He was begging God not to take his son from him. Don't you know he was just talking with him? Abraham had to focus on God to find faith during that journey. And when you find true faith on earth, then it's heaven on earth. Believe plus love and faith is heaven on earth. But before you get to this point, the journey begins the moment you chose Team God and never look back. Remember Lot's wife? I've done a lesson on that. All right, verse 3 says, "And Abraham rose up early in the morning and saddled his ass," which is a donkey, "and took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac his son, and clave the wood for the burnt offering, and rose up and went unto the place of which God had told him." So Abraham done as he was told, and you see that he didn't waste any time doing it. It said the next morning he rose up early. And he had faith in God to lead him. Verse 4, "Then on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place afar off. So God showed Abraham where to go." And this is the forerunner for Moses that would lead the people out of Egypt, out of their captivity later on. So God is leading us now, just like He's led everybody in the Bible. Verse 5, "And Abraham said unto his young men, Abide ye here with the ass, and I and the lad will go yonder and worship and come again to you." And so Abraham went to go worship with Isaac. And remember that Abraham knows what's about to happen. So what was Isaac thinking at that moment? He most likely had an idea of what was to be sacrificed, but none of that was with them or him at that moment. So did Isaac know? That's a brain teaser for you. Verse 6, it says, And Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it upon Isaac his son, and he took the fire in his hand and a knife, and they went both of them together. And so they gathered the supplies that they would need and went to the place where God had showed them to go. And God told Abraham to go another little journey with a father and a son whom loved the Lord, because they were set on their path that day. So I believe Isaac knew and agreed to be the sacrifice. That's what I believe. Verse 7, And Isaac spake unto Abraham his father and said, My father. And he said, Here am I, my son. And he said, Behold the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for a burnt offering? So Abraham and Isaac stood before the wood, and Isaac asked where the sacrifice was. And he was curious as a young man, because he didn't know at that part in the human aspect of how he was thinking. You know, we're blinded until God shows us, and then your spirit is activated, and then he starts letting you know all these things. But that curiosity and wanting to know the Lord, Isaac's spirit agreed, is why I believe. That's why I think that I believe his spirit within him got woke up, because he was questioning why he was about to have to be sacrificed. All right, verse 8 says, And Abraham said, My son, God will provide himself a lamb for a burnt offering. So they went both of them together. And so Abraham explains that God will provide a lamb. But in Abraham's mind, he knew it was to be Isaac. And he had that much faith in our Lord. Verse 9, And they came to the place which God had told him of. And Abraham built an altar there, and laid the wood in order, and bound Isaac his son, and laid him on the altar upon the wood. And so he bound Isaac, his only son. This is the forewarner for the sacrifice of Jesus Christ years later. So another prophecy that's been fulfilled. And Abraham stretched forth his hands and took the knife to slay his son. So Abraham was just about to slay his own son, Isaac. And the angel of the Lord called unto him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here am I. So the angel from heaven spoke to him directly, and he, don't you know, was listening for God's words. He had that much faith, and he, in a way, sort of felt like his judgment of whatever was going on in his personal life then was about to come to fruition with God. And he said, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, neither do thou anything unto him. For now I know that thou fearest God, seeing that hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, from me. And so through this, Abraham learned to fear the Lord. And you shouldn't, fear doesn't mean fear. It's have faith that he knows what is best for you. Fear his plan for you. And that way you will have enough faith in him to get you through these life challenges. Fear God has a plan for you, and the devil tries so hard to deceive us. And so God's teaching all of us through this just to have faith in him. Verse 13, And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in a thicket by his horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering in the stead of his son. And so God provided a ram instead, and he always gives us a way out of every trouble the devil sends our way. Verse 14 says, And Abraham called the name of that place Jehovah Jireh, as it is said to this day, In the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. And so Abraham named that place because it was sacred to him, because God showed him mercy and didn't take his son. Verse 15, And the angel of the Lord called unto Abraham out of heaven the second time, and spoke to him a second time, and said, By myself have I sworn, saith the Lord, for because thou hast done this thing, and hast not withheld thy son, thine only son, So Abraham was willing to give up his son. So God is saying, I'll do the same with mine. And so that's leading up a forerunner to Jesus Christ. God's going to, give up his only begotten son. And that in blessing I will bless thee, and in multiplying I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand which is upon the seashore, and thy seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. And so God blessed Abraham's seeds and multiplied them. They then possessed the gate of his enemies, meaning able to keep enemies at bay. You sense when something isn't right. If if we traced ourselves back to the bloodlines, all of this is in our DNA. 18, and in thy seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because thou hast obeyed my voice. And so Abraham's seeds, which is us throughout generations, have been blessed because Abraham was tested and was put through fire to obey God's voice. And so what does that tell you about us today? What should we be doing? Verse 19, so Abraham returned unto his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And so they returned to the other men and went to Beersheba. And these men were probably curious about what was about to be sacrificed as well. They knew there wasn't a ram. They seen two men going up a hill with a knife. Were they talking to God and asking for his help to help Abraham and Isaac? And so I think they were probably praying to God to help Isaac. And then verse 20 through 24, I'm just going to read it. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, saying, behold, Milcah, she hath also borne children unto thy brother Nahor, Huz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Fildash, and Jilaph, and Bethuel. And Bethuel begot Rebekah. And these 8 Milcah did bear to Nahor, Abraham's brother. And his concubine, whose name was Reumah, she bare also Tebah, and Gam, and Thahash, and Micah. And so that just tells about the generations of Abraham and Isaac, because bloodlines are important. And if you've looked at my list, we've got a study on bloodlines that's coming up. So now that maybe you understand what Abraham was willing to sacrifice to have a relationship with the Lord, ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice in this world today to make it to heaven? Do you just simply want to believe and make it? That's your choice. Or do you want to believe, love, and trust him and have faith to go on a journey with him that just might change your life here in the human aspect of things? And so when I was tempted in a bathtub here in Hot Springs, Arkansas, I did not realize how much God can have a presence in our lives as much as he does now. I'm so grateful to him for the many blessings that I've received in the past few months. His love is overwhelming. So to answer the question that I've been asking myself about what I'm sacrificing for his purpose in my life, my family suffered and almost shattered. But I have faith that God will do his will in my life and what's best for me. I've made many mistakes in my life. I ask for forgiveness every day because I'm not worthy. But God taught me today, as I was doing this Bible study, that deem yourself worthy and then ask him what you have to prove to him to get into his arms, not just into heaven itself. Do you want God to hold you in his arms, or you just want to look from afar? God and I plan together what our heaven looks like, and he just already has the blueprints made, just waiting for you to accept his tempt, just like with Abraham. It's not about being worthy. It is you are worthy. Then have faith to walk with him on that journey. And remember that most of the stories in the Bible are all about people having faith in the Lord and overcoming personal battles that God always gives us a way out from. And so instead of the sin cycle that I just taught on, we just learned the faith cycle. and have faith in God over and over. Plant a seed of faith, then receive your rewards, which is God's blessing. And so this was a lot of stories wrapped into one, but God set me at this kitchen table and wrote the majority of this. And so I just encourage everybody, like I said, to get in that relationship with God. And he had this at the end of my notebook. I just ran out, and he said, temptations and visions of the world, make sure that you have discernment and decide, is it God or is it the devil showing you something? God will lead you and never fail you. If whatever path you've been on and the devil just keeps failing and failing, then it's the devil. So you need to learn that and then learn God. But he uses disguises and false sights and things like that. And so I believe in one way I was tempted by the devil in that bathtub, but in all actuality, it was God that told me to go on my journey that I'm now on. And I'm telling you, it has been the greatest blessing of my life. And so I'm able to talk through this today without being emotional because I have faith in God that he will fix my family to what is in his will for me in my life. I hope that y'all find this type of relationship with God. And as always, I enjoyed doing this. It was him talking to y'all today. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. As always, y'all have a God bless evening. Be safe in the storms. I love y'all, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.